The morning of October 28th, 1944, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita sits in a borrowed cabin aboard the cruiser Nagara. His hands rest flat on a wooden table. They are not shaking. They are not moving at all. An officer enters with a message pad. The officer hesitates before speaking because the Admiral has not moved in nearly 20 minutes. His eyes are fixed on a point somewhere beyond the bulkhead, beyond the steel of the ship, perhaps beyond the horizon itself. "Sir," the officer says quietly, "Tokyo is requesting a preliminary after-action report." Kurita looks up. His face shows no expression. Not anger, not grief, not exhaustion. Just a profound, empty stillness. He takes the pad. He writes 9 words in careful kanji. Then he stops. He reads what he has written. He underlines one word twice. The word is everything. 3 days earlier, Kurita had commanded the most powerful surface battle force Japan could assemble in 1944. The super battleship Yamato, the super battleship Musashi, 5 battleships, 10 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 15 destroyers. This was the center force. This was Japan's last concentrated striking power. This was the steel fist that would smash into Leyte Gulf and destroy the American invasion fleet. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Now, 72 hours later, Kurita sits in a cabin that is not his own, on a ship that is not his flagship, writing a report about a battle that did not happen. The invasion fleet he was supposed to destroy is still unloading troops onto Leyte. The transports are still intact. The landing craft are still running back and forth to the beaches, and Kurita's battle force, his massive striking force, is steaming west, away from the target, away from Leyte Gulf. Retreating. The message he sends to Tokyo is brief. It does not explain the tactical decisions. It does not justify the withdrawal. It simply states a realization that has been building in his mind for 3 days of continuous combat, a realization about American industrial capacity, about American air power, about the assumptions Japan made when it started this war. The message reads, "We underestimated everything. To understand what Kurita means, you must go back to October 23rd, to the moment when the plan still seemed possible, when victory still seemed achievable, to the Palawan Passage, where Kurita's fleet is steaming through calm waters toward the Philippines. It is 03:30 hours. The moon is down. The sea is glass. Below the surface, 2 American submarines are tracking the center force, USS Data and USS Dace. They have been shadowing the Japanese fleet for hours, sending contact reports, waiting for the perfect firing position. Commander David McClintock aboard Data closes to 400 yards. He fires 6 torpedoes at the lead cruiser. 4 hit. The cruiser is a Targo, Kurita's flagship. The torpedoes strike along her port side in rapid succession. The explosions rip through her engine rooms. The boilers detonate. Secondary blasts tear open her hull. She begins to list immediately. On Atago's bridge, Kurita grabs the railing. The deck is tilting beneath his feet. Damage reports are shouting through voice tubes. The ship is dying. He knows this immediately. "You do not survive." 4 torpedo hits to the engine spaces. "Abandon ship," he gives the order. Officers around him are moving fast, trying to gather codebooks, charts, the Admiral's personal effects. Kurita stops them. There is no time. "Get off the ship." He climbs down into the water himself. No ceremony, no dramatic last moment aboard his flagship. He swims through oil and debris. He is 55 years old. He has been awake for 20 hours. He swims through the darkness toward a destroyer that is maneuvering to pick up survivors. Behind him, a Targo rolls over and sinks, 19 minutes from the first torpedo hit to the moment her stern disappears. 360 men go down with her. Kurita is pulled aboard the destroyer Kishinami. He stands on the deck, dripping, covered in fuel oil. An officer wraps a blanket around him. The officer expects orders, expected the Admiral to immediately take command. Assess the situation. Continue the operation. Kurita just stands there. He watches the spot where a Targo went down. There is nothing to see, just dark water, just the kind of total erasure that happens when a 10,000-ton warship ceases to exist in 19 minutes. What is the status of the fleet? He finally asks. The officer hesitates. Sir, Maya has also been sunk, torpedoed by the second submarine. Takao is heavily damaged and turning back to Brunei. 2 heavy cruisers sunk, 1 crippled, in 30 minutes, before the battle has even begun, before they have even reached the Philippines. This is the opening move of what will become the largest naval battle in history, and Japan has already lost 10% of the Center Force's heavy striking power to submarines they never saw. Kurita transfers his flag to the battleship Yamato. He climbs aboard at 0700 hours. Yamato is the largest battleship ever built, 72,000 tons, 9 18-inch guns, armor belt 16 inches thick. She is supposed to be unsinkable, supposed to be the ultimate expression of naval power. Kurita walks onto her bridge. He looks out at the fleet. They are still moving toward the Philippines, still heading for the Sibuyan Sea, still committed to the operation. The plan is called Shogo 1, Victory Operation 1. It was designed by Combined Fleet Commander Admiral Somu Toyoda in Tokyo. It is Japan's last gamble, the entire remaining naval force divided into 3 groups, converging on Leyte Gulf from different directions. The northern force, 4 carriers with almost no aircraft, will act as bait. It will sail northeast of the Philippines and draw away Admiral William Halsey's powerful 3rd Fleet carriers. While Halsey chases the decoy carriers north, Kurita's center force will pass through the San Bernardino Strait and attack Leyte Gulf from the north. Simultaneously, the southern force will attack through Surigao Strait from the south. If everything goes according to plan, the American invasion fleet will be caught between 2 Japanese surface forces. The transports, the supply ships, the vulnerable landing craft, all of it will be destroyed. The troops already ashore on Leyte will be cut off. The invasion will fail. The Americans will be forced to negotiate. This is the theory. Kurita knows the reality. The reality is that Japan no longer has the carriers to provide air cover. The reality is that American submarines are hunting his fleet in every strait and passage. The reality is that this operation is not a plan for victory. It is a plan for a glorious death. One last decisive battle where Japan's remaining surface fleet will be destroyed, but will inflict such damage that perhaps, just perhaps, it will buy time for a negotiated peace. On Yamato's bridge, a staff officer brings Kurita the latest intelligence reports. American carrier aircraft have been spotted over the Philippines. Task Force 38. Halsey's carriers. At least 6 fleet carriers. Hundreds of aircraft. They're close. Too close. The American carriers are supposed to be drawn away by the decoy force. That is the plan. But the decoy force is still far to the north. It has not yet been spotted by American reconnaissance. Which means, for now, Halsey's carriers are still in position, still covering the landing beaches, still able to strike at any Japanese fleet that approaches. Kurita checks the chart. The center force is about to enter the Sibuyan Sea. It is a narrow body of water, surrounded by islands, no room to maneuver. If the American carriers find them here, in these confined waters, his fleet will be trapped. But there is no other route. The only way to reach San Bernardino Strait is through the Sibuyan Sea. He gives the order, continue course, maximum anti-aircraft readiness. At 0800 hours on October 24th, the American scout planes find them. A radio operator on Yamato intercepts the contact report. Enemy fleet sighted, multiple capital ships, course east, speed 20 knots. Now the Americans know, now Halsey knows, now the carriers will launch. At 10:26, the first attack wave appears. 30 aircraft from the carrier Intrepid. They come in from the east, dive bombers and torpedo planes. The fleet opens fire. Every gun, every ship. The sky fills with black puffs of anti-aircraft fire. The Zeros from the few remaining Japanese carriers try to intercept, but there are not enough of them. Not nearly enough. The bombers concentrate on Musashi, Yamato's sister ship. Identical design, identical armor, identical arrogance of invulnerability. The first bomb hits her forward deck, penetrates, explodes below. The torpedo planes come in low. 4 torpedoes hit her port side. The explosions are visible from Yamato. Enormous geysers of water. The ship shudders, lists, but does not stop. She is too massive, too heavily armored. She continues steaming. At 12:07, the second attack wave arrives. 45 aircraft from Enterprise and Franklin. They ignore the smaller ships. They focus on Musashi. More bombs, more torpedoes. Kurita watches through his binoculars. He counts the hits. 7 more torpedoes, 4 more bombs. Musashi is listing 15 degrees now. Her forward deck is awash, but she is still moving, still firing her anti-aircraft guns. At 13:30, the third wave, 75 aircraft from Lexington and Essex. Kurita realizes what the Americans are doing. They are not trying to sink the entire fleet. They are trying to kill one ship, to prove that even the largest battleship ever built can be destroyed by aircraft. To make a demonstration out of Musashi, the attack is methodical, surgical. The dive bombers hit her from above. The torpedo planes hit her from both sides. Each attack wave is perfectly coordinated, timed to give the previous wave's torpedoes time to explode before the next wave arrives. By 1400 hours, Musashi has taken 17 bombs and 19 torpedoes. Her speed drops to 6 knots. Her list increases to 30 degrees. Her captain reports fires out of control, flooding in multiple compartments, steering lost. Kurita makes a decision. He orders Musashi to fall back. The rest of the fleet will continue. Musashi will try to make it to Coron Bay for emergency repairs. It is a mercy order. Everyone knows she will not make it to Coron. She will sink somewhere behind them. But at least her crew might have a chance to abandon ship in calmer water. The center force continues east, without Musashi, under continuous air attack. At 15:30, Kurita receives a message that changes everything. The light carrier Princeton has been hit. She is on fire and may sink. Princeton is part of Task Force 38. She is one of Halsey's carriers. This confirms what Kurita already knows. The American carriers are close, too close, and they know exactly where he is. At 1600 hours after the 5th attack wave, Kurita makes a controversial decision. He orders the fleet to reverse course, to turn west, away from the Philippines, away from San Bernardino Strait, away from the objective. His chief of staff, Rear Admiral Tomiji Koyanagi, stands beside him. "Sir, if we retreat now, the operation fails." Kurita's voice is flat. "We are 6 hours behind schedule. We have no air cover. We have lost Musashi. Every ship has suffered damage. If we continue into the strait in daylight, they will sink us before we reach Leyte Gulf. We will reverse course for 2 hours, wait for darkness, then resume eastward course and transit the strait at night. It is a tactical decision, reasonable, defensible. It is also the moment when the battle begins to come apart, because the American pilots report Kurita's retreat. They report the center force turning away. They report heavy damage to multiple ships. And Halsey, reading these reports, concludes that the center force is beaten, defeated, retreating. At 17:15, as planned, Kurita reverses course again. The center force turns east, resuming course toward San Bernardino Strait. But by now, Halsey has made his decision. The decoy force, Ozawa's carriers, have finally been spotted far to the north. Halsey takes his entire fleet, all 6 carriers, all the fast battleships, and races north to destroy the Japanese carriers. He leaves San Bernardino Strait unguarded. He believes Kurita is no longer a threat. At midnight, Kurita's fleet passes through San Bernardino Strait. No American ships are waiting, no ambush, no defense. Halsey is 300 miles to the north. The strait is open. The center force emerges into the Philippine Sea and turns south, toward Leyte Gulf. The objective is now only 70 miles away. On Yamato's bridge, Kurita has not slept in 48 hours. His uniform is still stiff with dried fuel oil from the swim. His flagship was sunk 2 days ago. His sister battleship Musashi went down 7 hours ago. He has lost 3 heavy cruisers. Every ship in his fleet is damaged, but he is still moving toward the target. He is still following the plan. At 06:45 on October 25th, lookouts spot masts on the horizon. American ships. Kurita orders full battle speed. This is it. This is what they came for. But something is wrong. The American ships are running. They are not forming a battle line. They are scattering, turning east, making smoke. Kurita raises his binoculars. He sees aircraft carriers, small carriers, escort carriers, the slow ones used for anti-submarine patrol and close air support. Not fleet carriers, not Halsey's heavy carriers. These are the auxiliaries, the support vessels. Task Unit 77.4.3, call sign Taffy 3. He does not know this, but what he has found is 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, and 4 destroyer escorts, commanded by Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague. They are here to provide air cover for the troops ashore. They are not combat ships. They are support vessels, thin-skinned, lightly armed. They have no armor, no heavy guns. They cannot fight battleships. But between Kurita and Leyte Gulf, 70 miles to the south, there are now only these 6 small carriers and their escorts, nothing else. If he destroys them, the invasion fleet is defenseless. The transports are anchored in Leyte Gulf, unloading supplies. They cannot move fast, they cannot defend themselves. If Kurita reaches them, he can sink hundreds of ships. He can destroy the entire invasion. He gives the order. General attack. But then something happens that Kurita does not expect. The American destroyers do not run. They turn toward him, toward the battleships. 3 destroyers against 4 battleships, 6 cruisers, and 10 destroyers. The mathematics are absurd. It is suicide, but they come on anyway. USS Johnston. Commander Ernest Evans. She charges straight at the Japanese formation. She fires her 5-inch guns at Yamato. The rounds bounce off the battleship's armor. But Johnston keeps coming. At 10,000 yards, she launches her torpedoes. Then she turns into her own smokescreen and disappears. USS Hole and USS Heermann follow. They come in from different angles, making torpedo runs, firing guns. The Japanese formation begins to split. Ships are turning to avoid torpedoes, breaking formation. The attack is uncoordinated now. Some ships are pursuing the carriers, some are engaging the destroyers. The tight battle line has dissolved into individual ship actions. Kurita, on Yamato's bridge, is receiving reports from all directions. Heavy cruiser Kumano reports torpedo hit, listing. Heavy cruiser Chokai reports damage. Heavy cruiser Chikuma reports under attack by aircraft. The small American carriers are launching planes. They are attacking with depth charges, with rockets, with whatever they have. The destroyer escorts are making suicide runs. What should be a massacre, a one-sided destruction of inferior forces, has turned into chaos. And through the chaos, through the smoke and the shell splashes, Kurita makes a critical mistake. He looks at the American carriers and thinks they are fleet carriers. Large fleet carriers. Halsey's carriers. He thinks he has found Task Force 38. He thinks this is the main American carrier force. He does not realize these are escort carriers, support ships, the weakest units in the American fleet. And because he thinks they are fleet carriers, he thinks Halsey must be nearby. He thinks the fast battleships must be coming. He thinks he's about to be surrounded, trapped, because how else could such weak ships fight so fiercely unless they knew help was coming? For 2.5 hours, the Battle off Samar continues. The Americans fight like they are defending the gates of hell. Johnston is hit repeatedly. She loses power. She loses steering. She is sinking, but she keeps fighting. Commander Evans, his uniform shredded by shrapnel, his left hand blown off, stands on the tilting deck and continues giving orders until Japanese cruisers bracket his ship and send her to the bottom. USS Samuel B. Roberts, a destroyer escort, attacks heavy cruisers. Her 5-inch gun crew fires so fast, so continuously, that the barrel glows red. They keep firing until they run out of ammunition. Then they load star shells, illumination rounds, anything that will chamber. The ship is hit by a cruiser salvo. The explosion breaks her in half. She sinks stern first. Hull is hit 40 times. She capsizes. The escort carrier Gambia Bay, slow and vulnerable, is caught by cruiser fire. The shells tear through her thin hull like paper. She sinks, the only carrier ever sunk by surface gunfire in the entire war. But the rest of Taffy 3 escapes, because Kurita, at 0925, 3 hours into the battle, gives an order that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He orders the center force to break off the attack, to regroup, to cease pursuit of the American carriers. On Yamato's bridge, his chief of staff Koyanagi stares at him. "Admiral, we have them. We can finish them." Then we proceed to Leyte Gulf. Kurita's face is drawn. He has been standing for 3 days. He has not slept. He has watched his flagship sink, watched Musashi sink, watched cruisers burn. And now, in the moment when victory seems possible, when the American carriers are running, when Leyte Gulf is only 30 miles away, he cannot see it anymore. He cannot see the plan. He can only see American aircraft coming from every direction. He can only see his fuel gauges dropping, his damaged ship slowing, his formation scattered. He makes the calculation. If those are fleet carriers, then Halsey's fast battleships must be close. If he continues south to Leyte Gulf, he will be trapped in the confined waters with his damaged, scattered force. Better to regroup, better to consolidate, better to preserve what is left of the fleet. He does not know that Halsey is 300 miles north. He does not know that those are escort carriers, not fleet carriers. He does not know that the only thing between him and an undefended invasion fleet is 30 miles of open water. He gives the order. "Reverse course. Head north. Look for Halsey's main carrier force." The staff officers protest. Kurita overrules them. The center force turns away from Leyte Gulf, turns away from the objective, turns away from the victory that Imperial General Headquarters in Tokyo has gambled everything to achieve. By 1000 hours, the Battle of Samar is over. Kurita is steaming north, searching for an American carrier force that is not there. Behind him, Taffy 3 regroups, counts its losses, realizes it has survived. The invasion fleet in Leyte Gulf, 70 miles south, continues unloading supplies, completely unaware that Japanese battleships were 30 miles away. Kurita will steam north for 2 more hours. He will finally receive intelligence that Halsey is far to the north, that the decoy plan worked, that San Bernardino Strait was unguarded, that he could have entered Leyte Gulf. He will turn south again briefly, then at 1300 hours, receiving reports that all 4 decoy carriers have been sunk in the north, that the southern force has been annihilated in Surigao Strait, that he is now the only surviving Japanese naval force in the Philippines. He will make his final decision. He orders the center force to retreat, to withdraw through San Bernardino Strait, to head west, away from the Philippines, away from Leyte, away from the entire operation. By the time Kurita reaches the relative safety of Brunei, 4 days later, the full scale of what happened is becoming clear. The southern force, under Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura, has been annihilated in Surigao Strait. Both battleships sunk, most of the force destroyed. The northern force, the decoy carriers, all 4 carriers, have been sunk by Halsey's aircraft. The center force has lost the super battleship Musashi, 3 heavy cruisers sunk, 3 damaged, multiple destroyers sunk. Japan has committed nearly its entire remaining naval strength to this operation and gained nothing. The Americans are still on Leyte. The invasion continues. The transport ships are unloading. The battle that was supposed to destroy the American fleet has instead destroyed the Japanese fleet. Kurita sits in his cabin and writes his preliminary report to Tokyo. He does not write about the tactical decisions. He does not write about the chaos off Samar. He does not write about the order to withdraw. He writes one sentence that summarizes what 3 days of battle have taught him about the war. Japan is fighting. We underestimated everything. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The message arrives in Tokyo on October 28th. Imperial General Headquarters receives Kurita's preliminary report. The officers read it. Then they read it again. We underestimated everything. 9 words. No tactical explanation. No detailed after-action report. Just an admission that every assumption Japan made about this war was wrong. The losses are counted. 3 battleships sunk. 1 super battleship, Musashi, destroyed by aircraft. 4 carriers sunk in the north. All of them. 10 cruisers lost. 11 destroyers. More than 10,000 men. 305,000 tons of warships. Gone. In 4 days of battle. And what did Japan gain? Nothing. The invasion fleet at Leyte is intact. The Americans are still landing troops. The transports are still unloading supplies. The operation, the great decisive battle that was supposed to turn the tide, accomplished exactly nothing. But it is the second half of Kurita's message that truly devastates Tokyo. The part about what the Americans have, the industrial capacity, the replacement rate, the sheer, overwhelming material abundance that made the Battle of Samar possible. Because Kurita watched 6 escort carriers, the weakest carriers in the American fleet, launch wave after wave of aircraft. He watched destroyers charge battleships. He watched ships that should have run instead turn and fight, and he realized they were fighting that way because they knew reinforcements were coming, because they knew that even if they died, there would be more ships, more planes, more men, always more. In Tokyo, the naval staff pulls the intelligence reports, the numbers that they have been trying not to believe. In 1944, the United States completed 24 Essex-class fleet carriers, 24, each one larger, faster, and carrying more aircraft than any carrier Japan has left. Japan, in the entire war, built 6 fleet carriers. The Americans built 24 in 1 year, and they are still building them. The keels are already laid for more. The escort carriers, the little ones that Kurita fought off Samar, the Americans built them like automobiles. Casablanca class, 50 of them commissioned between July 1943 and July 1944. 1 year, 50 carriers, built by Kaiser shipyards using mass production techniques welded together in 60 days per ship. Japan, struggling with fuel shortages and material scarcity, cannot build 50 carriers in a decade. America built them in 12 months. Liberty ships, the standard cargo vessel. The Americans are producing them every 42 days, 1 ship every 6 weeks. At peak production, they are launching 3 per day. 3 ocean-going cargo vessels every single day. The SS Robert E. Peary was assembled in 4.5 days as a publicity demonstration. It was not an experiment. It was a message. This is how fast we can build. This is what you are fighting. Tokyo sends queries to its intelligence services. How many ships does America have? The answer comes back. In October 1944, the U.S. Navy operates 34 fleet and light carriers, 90 escort carriers, 23 battleships, 72 cruisers, over 300 destroyers, and more than 200 submarines. In the merchant fleet, there are over 3,000 cargo ships and 900 tankers. The entire Japanese merchant marine, built over decades, is smaller than what America added to its fleet in 1944 alone. The mathematics are impossible. Japan started this war with what it thought was a decisive advantage: superior training, superior equipment, the advantage of surprise. For 6 months it won. It sank the American battleships at Pearl Harbor. It captured Singapore, the Philippines, Burma, the Dutch East Indies. It controlled half the Pacific. And now, 2.5 years later, Japan has fewer ships than it started with, and America has 20 times more. This is what Kurita means when he writes, "We underestimated everything, not just the ships, not just the industrial capacity, the entire philosophy of the war." Japan fought a war of preservation, of husbanding resources, of trying to make every ship, every plane, every trained pilot last as long as possible, because replacements were limited, scarce, precious. America fought a war of expenditure, of accepting losses, because losses could be replaced, of sending destroyers against battleships, because if the destroyers died, there would be more destroyers, of using escort carriers as bait, because even losing 6 carriers would not significantly impact the fleet, because in the time it took to sink 6 American escort carriers, American shipyards would build 12 more. The Musashi, Japan's pride, the largest battleship ever built, 72,000 tons, armor 16 inches thick. She was supposed to be unsinkable. She took 19 torpedoes and 17 bombs to sink her. It required over 300 American aircraft, 5 separate attack waves to finally put her under. And she did sink. But here is what haunts the Japanese naval staff. In the time it took Japan to build Musashi, 5 years from keel laying to completion, America built all 24 Essex-class carriers. The resources that went into one unsinkable battleship, America spread across 24 fleet carriers. And the carriers won. The carriers sank Musashi. This is the realization that is settling over Imperial General Headquarters in those last days of October 1944. That the war is not about courage. It is not about tactics. It is not about the warrior spirit. It is about steel and oil and the ability to turn raw materials into warships faster than the enemy can sink them. And in that war, the industrial war, Japan lost before it began. Vice Admiral Kurita, back in Brunei, sits in his cabin and writes his full after-action report. It is long, detailed. It describes the tactical decisions, the air attacks in the Sibuyan Sea, the passage through San Bernardino Strait, the engagement off Samar, the decision to withdraw. But at the end, he returns to the same conclusion. We underestimated their industrial capacity. We underestimated their ability to replace losses. We underestimated their willingness to sacrifice ships and men because they knew more were coming. We underestimated everything. The report goes to Tokyo. It is filed. It is read by senior officers. It changes nothing, because by October 1944, there is nothing left to change. The Battle of Leyte Gulf was Japan's last operational fleet. After this, there are only individual ships, desperate missions, kamikaze attacks, the final terrible calculus of a nation that has run out of ships, out of fuel, out of options. The war will continue for 9 more months. But the Imperial Japanese Navy, as an offensive force, ceased to exist on October 26, 1944, when the last ships of the center force steamed west through San Bernardino Strait, away from Leyte Gulf, away from the battle, away from any hope that Japan could win this war at sea. Kurita survives the war. He returns to Japan. He is quietly retired. For decades, historians will debate his decision to withdraw. They will argue about whether he should have pressed the attack, whether he could have reached Leyte Gulf, whether he could have destroyed the invasion fleet. But Kurita knows something that takes the historians years to understand. It would not have mattered, even if he had reached Leyte Gulf, even if he had sunk every transport. The Americans would have brought more. They always had more. In 1945, in the final months of the war, American shipyards will deliver ships that were not even planned when the war started. The Navy will have more carriers than it has trained air groups to put on them, more destroyers than it has crews to man them. The production will finally slow, not because of enemy action, not because of resource limitations, but because there are simply not enough targets left to justify building more ships. This is what Japan underestimated. Not American courage, not American tactics, but American capacity. The ability to turn an entire continental economy into a machine for producing warships, to build them faster than they could be sunk, to replace losses before the enemy had finished celebrating the victory, to turn naval warfare from an art of preservation into a brutal, grinding war of industrial attrition, a war that Japan, with its limited resources and its island economy, could never win. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.